It's the 4th of May, and I'm inside the polytunnel today. I'm going to put these tomatoes into the final pots as we've got a bit of cloud and a bit of rain, which, you know, it'll help the plants get watered in, because we've had a kind of week or so of decent dry weather, so everything can get watered in, and that way then it just means I don't have to go out and water things, so it gives me a chance to come in here and do this, because it's one of them jobs. It's, you know, once a year they go on to do this, and it's just a big job out of the way. You know, it doesn't take long. You know, I've pre-prepared these pots. They're all 3 litre pots with a 1 litre pot inside, which I'll explain in a minute. So these pots consist of 2 of the same pots, both 3 litre pots, but on the inner one I've cut off the bottom inch of the pot. They were cheaper pots on the inside. They're like a softer plastic. You know, where these are a bit harder. They don't have to be exactly the same, but pretty close. So when, obviously, once it's populated the new pot with roots, it enables you to be able to lift the inner pot out, revealing, you know, basically an inch of compost at the bottom that's full of roots for when you're going to nestle it into your raised beds. That's if you're doing that, or a grow bag. So it's really straightforward to do. I've got multi-purpose compost. It's the same mix that I've actually got the tomato plants in, which are currently in these, which, I mean, it's the 4th of May today. I think I did these on the 20th, so they only had, like, you know, 2 weeks. But I mean, I think I said about 10 days, but not what you can see. But they don't take long. You know, there's roots at the bottom, so which says to me in about another 10 days, 2 weeks time, they'll have populated these, which means they can pretty much go in the final place, which kind of takes you to last week of May, which in my zone, all risk of frost has actually passed, supposedly. But you can get caught out still, I guess, right up until June. I have had frost 1st of June before now, good few years ago, like, but I'm just going to go through. I'm going to do all these in one big batch. I've got some canes. I don't really need to put supports on them, but I will do, because I use that to tie the strings to, because I've got strings at the top of my polytunnel here. It's paracord, which is drop down, and that's what I train the plants up. So I'm just using these short canes. I've got some of these little, if I can find the link, because I've had these for years, just like little tiny plant supports. You click them on, so like that. I used to use them for onions and stuff like that, giant onions, but you know, they're kind of handy for these. So you kind of like eyeball up roughly how far from the corner of the inner pot you want it, so you know, it's kind of about an inch in from the corner. Just gives me a rough idea. So it doesn't have to be perfect, because they are supporting themselves quite well. And obviously on the days where there's a little bit of a breeze, and it's not a cold breeze or anything like that, and it's dry, I'll put them outside just to give them a bit of a shake, and that just stimulates the trunk to get a bigger plant. Obviously at this stage there could be some suckers on, for those who don't know, little side shoots. But if you're growing your tomatoes, you know, like a vine, these are what you need to keep picking out. And then plants are called indeterminate. So indeterminate ones, kind of like you just leave them to do the thing, and they grow like a bush. They get so high, they just stop and produce side shoots, and that's it, a little bush of tomatoes. So I'm just going to go along, pull a load of pots out. Some of these I haven't got pots in because I kind of ran out of pots, so I had to kind of use some pots. It's really easy, you know. Pots inside, just get your inner pot, give it a little pull. There's your hole. Now, as long as your inner pot's pretty much the same as what you're using, you don't want it too much smaller, because you end up having to really squeeze your compost in. So I'll do these 5 here, and that's first 5 out of the way. No particular order. So I'm just going to pull each label out, so I'm going to remember to put them back in. And then you can plant these even deeper if you want. There's no problem there. So, not root bound, but good root system. Simply turn it upright. Just let it go with a plop. And a tap, shove your label back in. That's all. And if you need to top it up with some more compost or anything like that, which I probably will do once I've watered them in, I'll leave them a day or 2, and then I'll just maybe top these up a little bit before they go in the final place. Or I might do it once they're in the final place, just top it up a bit. So I can still see the outline of the inner pot roughly. I'll shove this cane in. You just got to be careful you don't damage the roots, you know. I mean, you damage some, but if you do it sort of like one fell, good swoop like that, you're not so bad. Doesn't have to be straight or anything fancy like that. So it's only there to stop the plant. Should you sort of get a high gust of wind, stop it from folding over, it just gives it that little bit of support should it need it. And regarding watering in, they're going to get a really good watering in now. And the idea is as it dries out, it'll dry from the top down, which will encourage the roots to look for water, and they'll always head towards damper areas. So don't be frightened of giving it a right good old watering this first time round. You know, because if the compost is decent enough, you know, it can drain well, it will only hold on to what it needs. You know, you can water it a bit now, water it in 10 or 15 minutes. You know, it's starting to come through the bottom a little bit, but some of that will obviously, because you know, if you do it in 2 or 3 stints, that'll really load it with water. So these are 3 litre pots. It's probably like, you know, 3/4 of a litre of water in that. Feels quite heavy. I'm fine with that. Pop that at the back here out of the way. The reason why I did these the other week was to give me a bit more time. I mean, usually you could go from a smaller pot straight into that if you wanted to, but it was to just give me a bit more time, because, you know, 2 weeks ago I had nothing planted up at the plot, so I had all those plants were still here. So now they've all gone, they're in the plot. That's one job out of the way. Found the cane. I kind of know when I've got the cane in the right spot, because it pushes through one of the holes at the bottom of the pot. But I've done my tomatoes this way for, you know, a good number of years now. You could use a full-size watering can, I just don't want it to slosh about everywhere. So I've got 2 watering cans. They've been stood in the polytunnel since yesterday evening, so they're a similar temperature, which just saves any sort of shock to the roots or anything like that. You know, if you've got cold water that's icy cold, it can shock them a little bit. But it's not too bad, because it is a little bit cooler today anyway. Because we've had some hot days, because it's why you've got to be careful. Your polytunnel can, like currently in here, it's about, we've got a thermometer in here, so I think it's about 15 degrees. Just have a check. It is currently, it's 11 degrees in here, so it's not dead warm. I've got another pot down here. I'll put a better tub down there, because that can catch any drips. You don't have to waste that water, because when it runs through, there'll be some of the nutrients out of this compost. You know, so you can, if you've got any smaller plants, you can soak them in that. So what I'm going to just pop all these in, then I can get this tray out of the way and clear everything up. And I can drop the canes in and whatnot, and water things afterwards if I need to. Just makes the whole process a little bit quicker. There's a Sand Miles ammo. Put that there. I'll show you this thing with some side shoots in a minute, so I can see the odd one. It's a job to get out of the way. I say some of your lower leaves might be going a bit yellow, and don't worry about that at the moment, because eventually you'll cut all these lower leaves off. You know, once they've got to a certain stage where they're pretty yellow, they're not really doing the plant any good, so you can cut them off. You know, these are slightly dry on purpose, because it just makes them come out of the pot a little bit easier. So once you start, you know, you lay everything out as in sort of one complete job. Instead of doing one at a time for everything, just do it a bit like a factory. Great if you've got another helper. You know, one can be potting and one can be watering and caning up. Right, I'll show you these side shoots now. They're only small on these, I don't know whether you'll be able to see them. So on your tomato plant, you have your main stem, and then you have your leaf truss, which is this. Follow that leaf truss all the way back to the main stem, and you'll be able to see just there. That's called a sucker or a side shoot. So you just basically pinch it off or pull it off, because that'll become another tomato plant. If they get a bit long, you know, you can pull them off and put them in some water or some compost for a week or two, and they'll put some roots out, and it's a full new tomato plant. And if your seeds are in F1, it doesn't matter, because those side shoots will still grow that plant. You know, there's already on this, I don't know if you can see it, this at the top here, there are some little buds starting. That's the first fruits. So these are sun gold. They are a bit of a bendy plant, but one of the earliest ones to start fruiting. So you've got to go through, make sure you get all the side shoots off. No matter if they're really tiny, you can leave them for a few days, but it's a job you have to constantly do through the year. And yep, some do get away, and you look out and you all of a sudden see this. I always notice it off the colour. You know, there's a different colour of green in the background. You think, oh, you follow that back and it's a side shoot. You know, and if it's too big to snap off, you can use some snips or something and just nip it off that way. Because usually in the morning they're quite cool. You can get the side shoot and click it one way and click it towards you and it'll just snap off. When it's warm, there's a bit more flex in the plant, so that you've got to just be careful. And if you ever lose your growing tip, your plant for some reason, just leave one of the side shoots and that will become the new leader. You know, if you accidentally snap the top off, which I think most gardeners have done at some point when they're tying it to canes or winding strings around. They get a bit, they think, oh, I'll get another wind around that, and just bend the plant a bit, and then it suddenly goes with a crack. You know, it soon catches up. That's all them out of that tray done, so that gives me a bit of room. You know, a lot of times I'll put some water in these, about 1.5 inches of water. I'll sit some pots in that and I'll leave them for half an hour to soak up as much water as they can, and then let them drain off. You know, and that's perfectly fine as well to do. You know, but I'm just going to go through, line them up, have a quick look for side shoots, pinch them off. And it just, once I've watered in and caned, it means that I've got time to get on with some other jobs. Because as some of you know, I'm a guitarist and a singer in a band, so gigs are coming up and rehearsals. So at least with these in, it means they're not going to run out of water quick or go horrendously wrong. You know, I'll give these a good water today, and they probably won't need any more water for anything up to sort of 5 days, something like that. You know, and in probably say like 15 days they'll be coming out and going into the beds. That's all them ones done, so let's get my canes now. Because what I tend to do when I put the tomato plants in the main bed is I push these canes through, and they go through the sort of pot into the bed then. And it didn't take long, you know, 5-6 days in the bed, and that's it. You won't be able to pull these pots out because they'll have rooted into the main bed. But you know, I need to clear the beds off, take the covers off, expose them. Might put a little bit of bloodfish and bone meal on. Just any sort of multi-purpose general fertiliser will do. You know, but if your beds are sort of alright, you won't need anything. You know, you can follow feed through the year, you know, or obviously bottom feed. I tend to feed it through the pot here with some just tomato feed, liquid tomato feed, and then in between the pots when they're in the bed, that's where I keep that mainly watered. Sort of feeder roots are high up and then the water roots go deeper down. Like I say, you can plant them, if your tomato plants are a bit leggy, doesn't matter, just plant them a little bit deeper. I mean, I could bury these right up to the tip here if I wanted to, just leave like a top inch, it'd be fine. It'd just put out more roots through the stem. Some of you might remember a few years ago I used to grow some called subarctic plenty outside. I used to keep potting them deeper and deeper, and in the end the actual pots are like nearly 12 inches deep. And then when I plant it in the ground, I'd go deeper again. So you end up with a really deep root system, which is great because, you know, when you get a dry spell, the ground rarely dries out that far down. Well, take a while for that to dry out, this sort of weather we've had this year anyway. I went down the plot yesterday to earth me potatoes up, which was hard work to be honest. Took a while, and then finished off dismantling a fruit cage on a neighbouring plot because they've given the plot up now, so I've got the fruit cage. Stripped it down best I could into its individual parts, and then brought it all back here, so it's all cable tied up in the garden. I need to sort of clean it and make a few adjustments to it, and then take it all back down at some point and then erect it. I've got to dismantle my own fruit cage first. It just seems pointless doing it this side of the fruiting season. So I'm going to let my blueberries, because they've got a cage over them, not the best, as long as it doesn't collapse at the bean time. As soon as they finish fruiting, that's when I'll do it. And then should I need to move any of the blueberry bushes at all, which I might do, I might have to just edge a couple of them over, and then I can do that as soon as we get towards the end of the year, but before the rains, if not very early next year, providing the ground's not sodden. But I might actually, if I do move, I might actually lift them all up a little bit because it has been very wet. I'm not going to film all these, I'll just finish watering these ones and then see if there's any other jobs. I don't know when I'll upload this video and what I'll be with it. I need to do a little bit of weeding. When I planted the lettuce out in the raised beds the other week, a few little weeds have started, so there's a first initial weeding to do on it. I picked some of the lower leaves off. Had a few to eat to be honest, but maybe just to tidy them up a bit. Obviously with this rain it will they'll grow. You just have to be careful, sometimes they can rot off at the stem for some reason. I'm not sure if it's whether it's my own compost, but when it gets wet it stays wet for quite a while. At least with it being a bit damper now, worms will come up and work it in. I've had a bit of damage up at the plot. Pigeons have attacked my peas, stripped them quite badly, so I kind of put a bit of netting over the front of them, try and protect them a bit. Hopefully they'll recover. And there's quite a few of my onions have been nipped off at ground level, so I imagine that's leather jackets. There's no slug damage on anything yet. But now we've got this rain, I won't be surprised the slugs will be out in force. So I've been out in the garden, I've seen quite a few. I just go out at night this time of year, have a look for them, any I see, I just dispatch them. Apart from this so-called leopard slug, I've started to leave them because apparently they are a bit of a friend. I never do actually see them eating crops, but I see them in my compost heap, so I think the deal is they eat other slugs and rotting vegetation, or composting vegetation, not necessarily young tender plants, but I think if given the chance they might do. But so when I've been seeing them, I've kind of left them to do their thing, hopefully keep the other slug numbers down. I mean, because once I get all 18 of me sort of indoor tomatoes in place, this shelf ends up full. Obviously I've got to take this shelf out of here when I put the tomatoes down there, and then it goes to one side until the onions are out and harvested, and then it becomes my drying rack, which you'll see later in the season. So that'll do for this bit. What else will be added to the video, I'm not sure yet, but we'll probably crack on with some in the next coming few days, little jobs and that. So I'm just going to do the rest of these. I've got another 9 to do. The Roma I'm going to put in probably 12 litre pots, and they'll be just grown outside or dotted about under some sort of cover, because they're sort of determinate. They don't tend to get very high, I found, so it's just pointless putting them in a polytunnel that's nice and high. You know, it doesn't seem much point, so I'll probably put them on the doorstep maybe, you know, because there's nothing on the doorstep anyway. So I put 2 plants out there on the doorstep, south facing, plenty of sunshine. Just keep turning the pot a bit, just put a cane in the pot, and I'll get some big plums off them, fingers crossed. Right, we'll get on with some other bits and bobs.